Hey, welcome to SI Now. It is Thursday, August 10th. I am Maggie Gray. That is Robin Lundberg, and we have some breaking news out of Los Angeles. Two-time NBA All-Star Zach Randolph was arrested last night. Randolph was charged with felony marijuana possession with intent to sell. His bail was set at $20,000. Now, police were responding to a noise complaint in which they encountered a large crowd playing loud music and blocking a road in the Watts section of LA. After Randolph's arrest, the crowd became angry with the police, vandalizing cop cars. Now, according to reports, cops recovered 2 guns, drugs, a significant amount of cash, and 2 vehicles were impounded. Let's keep in mind, Randolph had just signed a 2-year, $24 million contract with the Sacramento Kings. The Memphis Grizzlies announced they were retiring Randolph's jersey number at the end of the season. Robin, how bad is this for Zach Randolph?
Well, Maggie, I have to reserve full judgment until I get all of the details of exactly what happened here. As far as simple marijuana possession, I don't think that would be a big deal in a vacuum, because I do think the tone of that has changed across the country, specifically in particular places like California. The problem for Randolph here is he has a history of various incidents, so this could be bad for him legally. It could be bad in his perception throughout the league. It could be bad in the way the Kings, his new team, judge him. The other thing I think I'm willing to say is he probably exercised poor judgment by putting himself in this situation, period, considering everything I just said.
I'm both shocked and not shocked that we're receiving this headline this morning. I'm shocked because Zach Randolph seemed like he had worked very hard to try to get away from that reputation that you were just alluding to with the laundry list of run-ins with the police, everything from being arrested for DUI to some marijuana possession, according to the Indianapolis Star, where in 2010 he was identified as, quote, a major marijuana supplier in Indianapolis, not far from where he's from. So the fact that he had all of these run-ins and then had seemed to turn it all around, I mean, to the point where the Memphis Grizzlies were saying no one will ever wear number 50 again because Zach Randolph means that much to our community. For that reason, I'm shocked. For all the things that we've said, I'm not shocked. And I'm surprised that, someone who has been down this bad path, got their reputation back, would put themselves in a position where that goodwill could get squandered. I mean, we're talking about a guy who's a 2-time All-Star, just got paid a lot by the Sacramento Kings, and I think was brought into the Kings to kind of be that solid force and presence in the locker room, which is something they haven't had, and getting away from Boogie Cousins and trying to, create an identity for the Sacramento Kings. They can't do that now with Zach Randolph with what we know sitting here Thursday morning.
It definitely hurts the progress that he's made. I mean, one of the things we assume is that you become wiser with age, and that is the assumption we had made with Zach Randolph. The moniker for that Portland team was the Jailblazers, sure. And he had gotten far away from that to the point where he was a bit of a folk hero in Memphis, as you mentioned. Again, I need to see all the details, have that all sorted out. But obviously, it's not a good look at best for Zach Randolph.
Yeah, and of course, people are asking here, why are people being arrested for possession of a plant? Why are people being arrested for this happening in the state of California? It is not legal yet to use marijuana recreationally in California. Also, he was charged with a felony with intent to sell because he would have had presumably over an ounce of marijuana with him. So we're answering your questions here on Facebook Live.
Again, to that point exactly, I would say it's not the possession itself. That you could say is poor judgment given his past history. It's also the circumstances around this particular incident, which we need to find out more about, because this wasn't a simple, stop and arrest for possession.
Well, also, I mean, we don't have very high expectations for the Sacramento Kings this year, considering how loaded the Western Conference is, but he is likely looking at a suspension from the NBA just by the fact that he was arrested for a felony, charged with a felony. We'll see what happens, but I would expect a suspension coming.
And to the Kings side, I feel bad for them in a way, because they have been mocked and ridiculed over the years, and they finally sort of took a turn. With the draft, people were praising them. With the veteran signings, including Zach Randolph, people were saying, hey, maybe the Sacramento Kings have their act together. So they finally are getting recognized for maybe not being a dysfunctional franchise, and this isn't their fault. fault, of course, but it's not going to look good for them.
Absolutely not. All right, well, we're still looking at your comments on Facebook Live. Keep them coming. Meanwhile, let's turn to the NFL because we're talking preseason. Deshaun Watson getting all the love after going 15 for 25 with 179 yards in his preseason debut. Watson also rushed for 24 yards, most of those coming on a 15-yard touchdown run. So let's just jump on this overreaction bandwagon and make Watson our adrenaline performer. It is presented by Toyota. Let's go places. Robin, Tom Savage, the starter, also looked pretty crisp. Who would you start if you were Bill O'Brien?
I'd start Deshaun Watson, and this isn't a reaction to last night or anything that could happen in the preseason. And I'm not even saying he's better than Savage right now. But if you're looking at ceilings, I think obviously you're going with Deshaun Watson. And all I heard last year, Maggie, was about how Alabama had a pro defense, right? This is a pro defense out there in college. They're so dominant. And he dominated said pro defense. So you can't tell me that he can dominate a pro defense like Alabama, and he's not then therefore going to translate to the pros. I'd like to see what he's got. I know they're stuck in this sort of situation where they think they're good enough to compete right now, so maybe they want a steward who they consider a steady hand. But I am a believer in trial by fire, so I'd go with Deshaun Watson.
Normally, I would agree with you, but I'm going to have to defer to DeAndre Hopkins, who is the most important Texan, I would say, besides J.J. Watt and Jadeveon Clowney. And he said only 6 days ago, if anybody should be a judge of quarterbacks, I've played with the most in NFL history throughout my 4 years. Didn't fact check that. So I put the stamp on Savage, and I think that's all that needs to be said about it. I agree with you. I think Watson has the amount of experience. He's played against pro defenses. He has beaten Alabama in that pro defense. I think he would be more ready than most rookie quarterbacks to step in and take over the reins. But I'm going to listen to DeAndre Hopkins, who is everything when it comes to this offense and how important he is. If he thinks that Savage is the better quarterback to go with, I'm probably going to follow his lead. The other thing is, I don't think it becomes a massive news story if Tom Savage gets benched and then Deshaun Watson comes in. The story would be more Watson comes in, not, oh my gosh, controversy because Tom Savage got benched. So I don't think there's a lot of downside if Bill O'Brien wants to start with Savage, and if things aren't going well, make a move to Deshaun Watson.
The one thing I'll say, and I think you're right, is they're not one of these bad teams where you put a guy in and you're worried you're going to destroy him off the bat at the beginning of his career. I think he is in a situation where the support system could be good enough for him to start right away. Speaking of who should play quarterback, John Elway denied the Broncos are looking for a QB outside of the current roster when he sent a tweet saying, quote, rumor of us being interested in anyone other than the QBs we have is another example of irresponsible fake news. Should Denver fans be okay with Trevor Siemian and Paxton Lynch?
Well, I didn't know that John O was running for president in 2020 with the fake news.
I wish he had used a different expression. He could have worded that a lot better.
Are we just throwing fake news around all over the place? Well, it's Nikki Jabala, who covers the Broncos and used to work here at Sports Illustrated, said it's 150% not real. This is just not a true story. But I always think there's a little, when there's smoke, there's fire. So I'm not sure how the fans think about it, but I think the Broncos are upset that Paxton Lynch hasn't grabbed this job away from Trevor Siemian. You know, they have a new offense coming in, new head coach and offensive coordinator both coming in this year. So this is an opportunity for these two to go head-to-head, and I think John Elway, who drafted Paxton Lynch in the first round, wanted Lynch to be able to come in and leave no doubt that he was a starter. That hasn't happened. Trevor Siemian has been the sharper quarterback. He's the better pocket passer right now. You have the defense that is so good and ready to win right now. I'm not surprised that there are rumors of stories like this. My thing is, who's out there who can actually step in and, you know, Peyton Manning-like lead now the
Colin
Broncos?
Kaepernick.
Maybe Kaepernick is an option. I don't think that's going to happen, quite frankly, because there were flirtations between the Broncos and the 49ers back when Kaepernick was a member of that team. But they're talking about A.J. McCarron as a potential target, or at least that was the news story that Elway quoted as fake news. I mean, is A.J. McCarron the guy to get you over the hump? I'd probably stay with these two guys.
Despite not loving the way he put it, I don't mind John Elway putting this sentiment out there, because even if it is true that they're looking for other quarterbacks, you don't want to hurt the confidence of the guys that you've got. You might as well give them that vote of support.
Well, when it comes to the NFL, we still don't know exactly what a catch is. Well, that may change this season, hopefully. The NFL Referees Union and the league announced a joint initiative Wednesday to begin moving to full-time referees immediately. The goal is to get between 21 and 24 full-time refs by the start of the season next month. Robin, will making the refs full-time improve the product on the field?
I think it definitely will. Look, you can't try to save every last dollar when you're a business as huge and booming as the NFL is. And the officiating has become a problem. Now, part of it is what they're instructed to do. I mean, I'm starting to think about picking up refs on my fantasy team with the amount of flags and how responsible they are for wins and losses. But I think it helps anyone to get more repetition, to get more training, to feel more fulfilled in their job. The next step that I hope they take is making the dab the official signal for excessive celebration. I just like the way this goes.
Yeah, I feel like you're going to be the poster child. You're really leading the movement for the dab to become the poster child. I think it should be the twerk, because that will actually get you flagged. Okay, I think this is a good attempt. I think this will solve some of the problems, which is the communication between the refs in the NFL, I think, is going to be better than ever now if you have full-time referees. The one thing I think that the NFL is going to try to eliminate here, and the referees will try to eliminate, can't be eliminated, which is some crews get known for penalizing certain things while other crews go lighter on certain things. You know, hey, this guy's going to call holding more often than that guy's going to call holding. I don't see how making them full-time eliminates that. That's the human element of refereeing. Now, I'm a person who's in favor of really taking a lot of the decisions out of these referees' hands, and any way you can make them automated, computerized, you know, just try to make it as fair as humanly possible and take the human element out of it. But I don't know how just making them full-time is going to take away some of these inherent, I'm not going to call them biases, but these inherent leanings that the referees have, because at the end of the day, they're still interpreting the rules.
Yeah, I don't think it's going to eliminate any of the problems that we have with officiating or the rhythm, but I do think it will help. I do think it's a step in the positive direction. Another day, another Mayweather-McGregor story. The Nevada State Athletic Commission will entertain the possibility of the fighters wearing smaller 8-ounce gloves. If this goes through, who does it favor, Maggie?
Well, I'll take a page from Floyd. On paper, this would favor Conor, because if people believe that it's going to take one lucky punch to bring down Floyd, because it's not going to outpoint him or outbox him, Floyd's one of the best ever at that. If they believe it's going to take one lucky punch, then this will definitely have a bigger impact. I mean, Conor is the more powerful fighter in this fight. Floyd is older, doesn't have the type of power. He's just the smarter boxer. Now, the thing that's flawed with this sentiment, though, of, you know, the lighter gloves maybe leading to Conor getting a lucky punch in, is that Floyd is one of the greatest defensive fighters of all time. I still don't believe that Conor's going to touch him in a way that's going to have any impact, whether the gloves are 8 ounces, 10, 14, whatever. Sparring gloves.
I think this favors Floyd with one exception. It favors Floyd in that he's going to hit harder now. I mean, McGregor is going to feel those punches more, and I expect Floyd to land a lot more punches than Conor McGregor if McGregor lands one clean punch in the entire fight. The drawback for Floyd is he does have a history with brittle hands, and the way that McGregor maybe could sneak away with an upset here is if Floyd breaks one of his hands or even both of his hands and is incapacitated for the remainder of the fight.
Well, listen, I mean, we've seen boxers win fights with one hand. If you break both of them, I mean, you'd probably have to
stop.
You'd have to stop, and that would be an unbelievable ending to this fight. But I can see actually I can see both sides, and I can see why they'd want to go to 8-ounce gloves, and I think that it's actually going to make the fight a little bit more entertaining. There, I said it. If you need a sign that you might need a better business model, if you need a sign, well, calling out LeVar Ball and his AAU team to come to your basketball game, it may mean that you need to make some changes. That is happening. Ice Cube, the founder of the Big Three, which has one former MVP, a finals MVP, and 4 All-Stars on their roster, wants LeVar Ball. Here's Ice Cube.
Hey, yo, LeVar, this your boy Ice Cube. I ain't forgot about that 4-point challenge. Now check this out. You bring your sons, bring your AAU team. Y'all come on down to the Staples Center to the Big Three this Sunday. Me and you can hit the court and do that 4-point shot in front of everybody if you want to do this. And then I'll buy the big baller brands for your whole team. Won't you do that, man? LeVar, love what you're doing, baby. Staples Center, I see you there.
I think this is admirable that Ice Cube wants to buy shoes for the AAU kids and the players, but I mean, what's your read on Ice Cube's request for LeVar Ball to come to Big Baller Brand?
It's
or
good.
Come to Big Three.
It's good marketing. We're talking about it right now, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that proves it right there. LeVar Ball, if he's anything, he's a draw. People are interested in what he's saying and doing. I would try and take it a step further. I would see if he could get Lonzo and LaMelo to suit up with him to form a Big Three of their own to take on the champions of the Big Three League.
Yeah, might be some questions with eligibility, maybe for the younger two ball kids off of something like that, but it would be fun. Here's my take on that Instagram post from Ice Cube. I think LeVar is gaining a lot more respect than maybe people are willing to give him credit for. I mean, Ice Cube, I think, listen, he's one of the great rappers and entertainers that we have in Los Angeles. He's absolute royalty. And now he's basically saying, LeVar Ball, I love what you're doing out there. I mean, he's welcoming him into the fold. I think people who believe that LeVar would not have a lot of power once Lonzo did get drafted by the Lakers, and it's like, all right, now LeVar's going to go away. You have things like this where Ice Cube saying, love what you're doing, come on down to my event. It's only going to empower LeVar Ball.
He moves the meter. Whatever he did worked. Whether you like it or not, you can't argue that it was ineffective.
Well, I think Ice Cube gets a lot of credit for disrupting some of the music industry.
Oh, no doubt.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think that if he's seeing LeVar Ball as like a kindred spirit, I think that really bodes well for LeVar. And you know what that could do? Bring corporate sponsors and legitimate, not that Big Baller Brand's not legitimate, but, you know, bring more money around that brand.
There is other basketball this summer, including the speculation of where LeBron will play after next summer. It's already heating up as we've begun parsing the tweets. He replied to Jamal Crawford's invitation to hoop in Seattle by saying, may have to make a day trip up there when I'm back home in LA, bro. So, is LeBron to the Lakers official?
Well, I don't own multiple homes, so I don't know if you call all of them home. But I'll have to get back to you on that. I have to find one of my more baller friends and ask him about it. But, you know, I'm starting to kind of pump the brakes on the LeBron to LA thing. And I think it's all because of the Kyrie trade demands. I feel like LeBron now sees this as a new challenge, which is rebuilding in Cleveland. Maybe proving to Kyrie, hey, I can get young guys to come play with me. I'm still the king, and I can get people to come to Cleveland, even though you want out, you're going to look crazy, and I'm going to bring in a whole new crop of young guys, and we're going to go back to the finals. Because I'm also just keep thinking about this. I mean, we were having a conversation earlier just about the Eastern Conference and kind of what could the Nets make the playoffs was the impetus for this conversation. It just reminded me how weak the East is. And I think LeBron honestly would be crazy to leave the Eastern Conference now because he's guaranteeing himself at least a spot, at least in the Eastern Conference Finals every year, which is not the same in the West.
LeBron always plays with enormous pressure, but in a sense, there will be less this season if Kyrie is gone. So the better he can do this year as really the runaway sole guy on the team with Kevin Love, Best Supporting Actor, or something along those lines could really help. But this is the trappings of being such a famous person, where you can't do anything without it being hyper scrutinized and analyzed, because I do believe they live in LA in the offseason. So I could imagine calling a house that they bought for $21 million home.
Yeah, but, you know, Cleveland is his home. I get that. I just, you know, I go back and forth with how calculated LeBron is. Like, I do think that he is very calculating, and he has to be. He's been famous since he was 16.
Sure.
He's grown up in this era, and I think actually done very well considering how famous he is and how much, you know, how invasive our culture is now. I think that he's handled himself, I mean, amazingly. But I go back and forth with, like, did he really, is this the calculated move? I think saying stuff about riding my wave and doing things like that, I believe are definitely, he's trolling and, you know, or not trolling, but he's subtweeting and calling guys out with his social media posts. This one I can't get behind. I just don't see where the fervor is.
Because this was a reply and not a direct tweet from LeBron himself.
Is that the difference?
Meanwhile, in a shocking development, Charles Barkley has an opinion, calling Kyrie Irving's desire to be the man stupid. What are your thoughts on that?
Okay, this is my thing with Barkley. I believe that because he never won a ring and because he was not a champion but the man on every single one of his teams, I think he is a little bit more sensitive to the fact that why would you ever leave a team that has a chance to go someplace that doesn't, even if you are going to be the man. And I know Kyrie Irving already has a ring. I get that. But I think this is something that always touches a nerve with Barkley because he doesn't want people to regret or dismiss how lucky they are to have a championship contender right there, just because he never tasted that victory.
I agree with the message, not necessarily the messenger, because I've heard Charles Barkley slam super teams and guys teaming up. We know Charles Barkley forced a trade during his career to get himself into a better situation. But I do agree that Kyrie Irving is making a mistake, because I think he had the best of everything. He got to play on a winning team, he got to take a ton of shots, and he got plenty of attention despite playing alongside LeBron.
And I'm just baffled a little by the timing of this, because I just don't know how many more and more attractive trade offers Kyrie has now as opposed to next year. I mean, maybe there are significantly more, but I doubt it. I think he could have waited this year, unless things are just so bad they can't be in a room together or on a private jet together. But things I feel like could have been worked out to the point where at least they could try to go for one more together. Well, that's us. Yesterday, we caught up with Tim Rowan of the MMQB. Tim has been crisscrossing the country, stopping at training camps, so we asked him to share what he's learned with us. Training camp tours at Sports Illustrated means, for some, piling in a van and driving that van across the country. Tim Rowan of the MMQB is one lucky passenger in that van. The van's now parked at Giants camp. We go there now. It comes your way, courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places. Tim, okay, you're out of the van, so let's start with those New York Giants. Looks like a team that should be the favorites to win the NFC East this season. What did you see at camp?
They look loose. They look good. Odell Beckham's dancing around, playing around with the equipment, having fun. Yeah, I mean, they brought in Brandon Marshall. They drafted Evan Ingram. They got 2 new weapons on offense, and it's just more receivers for Eli to go to. And everything that we've kind of heard about Ingram is that the coaches like what they see, and he probably should be a factor early on.
So wait, Odell Beckham playing with the equipment, the kicking net?
No kicking net. He was just taking some pole or something that they were using for a drill and using it to look like a little salsa dance. I don't know. He's having fun out there. So, it's the dog days of summer. You have to do something to kind of stay loose. So, him and Marshall were kind of playing around a little bit.
Okay, let's turn to one of their division rivals. That's Washington. Their offense has weapons, but battling some injuries. Josh Doxson, Jamison Crowder, Jordan Reed, various ailments among those 3. What's your expectations for this offense?
Well, yeah, I think the offense is going to be pretty good. Obviously, you want all those guys healthy. You want Kirk Cousins to have a lot of options in the passing game, like we just talked about with Eli and the Giants. But the thing that really stuck out to us at camp was Terrell Pryor. I mean, he looks like a legitimate number 1 receiver. Obviously, they're going against themselves in practice, but, he's a big, fast, smooth athlete who really seems to have a rapport already with Kirk Cousins. They've just been teammates for a couple months now, but they worked out together in the offseason. They went down and trained with John Gruden, brother of Redskins coach Jay Gruden. And, they really seem to have a connection early on. Like we were just there the other day, and there was a play. They were doing 11-on-11, and they're in the red zone. And Terrell's route wasn't open, so Kirk just pointed to the corner of the end zone. Pryor took off, and Kirk just floated this pass in over 2 defenders, and Terrell went up and got it. It was the play of the day. So you already see them kind of have that connection. So you mentioned all those other guys who are kind of banged up right now. But, I think Pryor is really the difference maker. And if those other guys can get healthy, obviously, then you really have a dynamic offense.
Their offseason, though, was filled with some drama, from Cousins' contract talks to firing the GM right before the draft. They're familiar with dysfunction with that franchise, but any chance that dysfunction impacts the season?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, but we've seen this with Kirk Cousins in the past, right? He played on the franchise tag last year, and I talked with him at length when we were there, and he's comfortable in this situation. He, ever since he's been the full-time starter, he was in the last year of his rookie deal, and then he was on the franchise tag, and now he's on the franchise tag again. And he's played really well the last 2 years when he's been on this in a contract year on a 1-year deal, kind of having to prove himself. I mean, this is Kirk Cousins. It's a cliche, but Kirk's that, mid-round pick who had to prove himself, and he just thrives in these situations. So, I don't know if the GM stuff really affects the players on the field, but all the stuff that happened with Kirk's contract and all the discussions and back and forth and speculation, that's behind him. He's on the field now, and he kind of thrives in these situations, and he seemed to kind of, be at ease, and he's ready to go. He looked pretty good at practice.
Tim, let's talk about the Philadelphia Eagles. Is it true that the fan base is somehow getting nicer, more patient? Is that what you found when you were at Eagles camp? Because, of course, Eagles fans are notorious for being hard on the team.
Yeah, I just wrote today the other day on SI.com about the fans have, everyone loves Carson Wentz. They can't get enough of Carson Wentz in Philadelphia right now. His rookie year, they didn't make the playoffs or anything, but they think they have a franchise quarterback. So, I talked to a bunch of guys in the sports talk radio station WIP, and they're just eating this up. They are buying in on the Philadelphia Eagles, and we'll see what happens when the season actually starts. But obviously the Eagles in the offseason, they went out and they also got Wentz help. That seems to be kind of the theme in the NFC East, right? They went and got big target receiver Alshon Jeffrey. They went and got Torrey Smith. They got LeGarrette Blount. So, no more excuses. Obviously Wentz is still young, but, it seems like they think Wentz is going to take a big step this year. And just talking to people in the locker room, Wentz has really been more assertive on the field, off the field, talking to receivers about the way he likes the routes being run, talking to the offensive linemen about cadence and blocking. And he's really putting his ownership stamp on this team. So, the fans love him, and he seems to be like he might back it up again this year.
If you were ranking the QBs in the NFC East right now, where would you put Wentz?
That's a tough question. There's a lot of good QBs in the NFC East, and I think they're all very close together, but you might have to put him at the end, right? I mean, Eli's got the 2 rings. Cousins has done it back-to-back years and, looks like a legit guy. And Dak, obviously has the, maybe better weapons in Dallas. Him and Dak are probably right there fighting for the 3rd and 4th spot. So, probably 3 or 4, flip-flop him and Dak. We'll see how they do in their sophomore years.
Lastly, Tim, let's talk about the Baltimore Ravens. Seems like the 2 biggest storylines are, well, Joe Flacco's injury, of course, but then not signing Colin Kaepernick. What else is going on at Ravens camp?
Well, yeah, they're going through Maggie, they're going through a transition period right now. They haven't made the playoffs the last 2 years. And, you look up and the Ravens have been so good for so long. The last time they haven't made the playoffs 3 years in a row was, when this franchise was founded in the late 90s. So, Suggs is getting older. You've seen a lot of their mainstay defensive players retire, move on. So, with Flacco being injured, it was kind of funny watching Ravens practice. You're like, there's not a lot of familiar faces out there on the field. So, I think they're really going through an identity crisis right now, and they really need Flacco to be ready week 1, and we'll see if that's the case. The whole Colin Kaepernick thing, that's a whole nother issue. We didn't get a chance to really talk to many people about that while we were there. But, I just think in general, from a macro scale, this team, they missed the playoffs the last 2 years. John Harbaugh is kind of, they've got to find their identity. I talked to Marshall Yanda about it a little bit, the kind of all-pro guard for the Ravens. And, in true guard form, he's like, yeah, we just need to get back to the running game, the run and pound, ground and pound running game that remember those Ravens teams when they won the Super Bowl with Trent Dilfer as their quarterback. Now, of course, a guard would say that. So, we'll see if they're able to do that. But I think, this is kind of a sneaky important season for them to see kind of where they're going in the future.
So do you think the Kaepernick to the Ravens possibility is over?
I don't have any inside reporting on that. It's just, we are getting to that point in camp where, preseason games are starting. If you're going to bring a guy in at this point, there's less and less time to really get him going. So the clock's ticking, right? It felt like, right when this came up about a week and a half ago, that would have been the time to bring him in, get him, acclimated, get him into the playbook. It's going to be harder and harder, as we get closer to the season, to bring in another guy in, whether it's Kaepernick or anyone else. And also it's unclear what Joe Flacco's injury status is. Jenny Varentis is my colleague is going to have a story discussing that a little bit on the website soon. But so it's just as every day passes, it seems less and less likely that they'd bring him in.
Tim Rowan out of the van. Thankfully not down by the river. Hopefully you don't have to get back in the van for very much longer. Tim, appreciate your insight. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, guys.
The PGA Championship is underway, so we head to Charlotte, North Carolina, courtesy of Toyota. Let's go places and welcome in editor at Sports Illustrated Golf, Jeff Ritter. Jeff, Rory McIlroy, the all-time money winner at this course. Is he the clear favorite overall in your mind?
I think so. I mean, you can make a case. Hideki Matsuyama's probably the hottest player in golf heading into this tournament. Jordan Spieth, of course, is riding the afterglow of the British Open, but this is Rory McIlroy's playground. I mean, he's won at this golf course 2 times. He is the best driver of the golf ball in the game today, and this golf course sets up perfectly for a guy who can hit the ball the longest and the straightest, and that's Rory. And they're also expecting weather to come in and out throughout the weekend, so when you soften a golf course, the ball doesn't run out as far. That only strengthens Rory's advantage that he already has off the tee. So you can make a case for a lot of guys this weekend, but I think the road to this trophy goes right through Rory McIlroy.
Jeff, of course, Rory making some big changes in the last few weeks. Parted ways with his longtime caddy, J.P. Fitzgerald. Now, Harry Diamond on the bag for Rory McIlroy. Will we see a difference in Rory in this tournament purely by his changing of caddies?
Probably not. I mean, Harry Diamond is one of Rory's buddies, so he's just kind of gone with a familiar face as a placeholder while he sorts out who takes this bag permanently. I think it would have been a bigger story maybe if this was Diamond's first tournament on the bag, but he did get one in last week at Firestone. Rory played well. Harry Diamond passed his first test, so I look for that job to be filled soon and for it to be a bigger story, but after this week is over.
Now, Jordan Spieth, he's looking to become the youngest player ever to win a career Grand Slam. He has to do it this year to achieve that particular designation. How would you handicap his chances?
Well, he has to do it this year if he wants to be the youngest ever to win the Grand Slam. So there's a little extra history on the line this week for Jordan. Certainly, he seems like he's in the right mindset. I sat in on his press conference yesterday. Seems relaxed. He used the word he's free rolling. He doesn't see it as pressure. He feels like winning the British Open a few weeks back was a bonus. And he's just going to go out there and have fun and stay relaxed and not put any extra pressure on himself. And the way he sees it, he has the rest of his career to win a PGA Championship and finish this Grand Slam. He doesn't want to put any more on it, that this idea that he has to be the youngest. And that's probably the right mentality because, like I said earlier, I think Rory McIlroy, this is a golf course that's tailor-made for Rory. Jordan Spieth has shown he can get the ball around anywhere, but it's going to be a tougher course for him. He's not one of the longer hitters on tour. He's going to have to, once again, rely on grit and his short game and kind of just grind it along. So obviously, Spieth is a compelling person to watch this week, and anytime you have a chance to make history, that's exciting. It's exciting for fans and exciting for to be a part of this. But I think Rory's the favorite as we stand here Thursday morning.
I wonder how much that pressure would build if Jordan Spieth is in contention on Sunday, heading down the back 9. Meanwhile, Dustin Johnson, Jeff, he's had a really bizarre 2017. Injured at the Masters, missed the cut at the U.S. Open, was never in contention at Royal Birkdale. So what is on the line for the world's #1 golfer in the final major of the year?
Yeah, you're right. It has been a weird year for Dustin. It starts right at that Masters. He entered the Masters, #1 player in the world, hottest player in the game, and then suddenly, the day before the tournament, falls down the stairs in his rental house, pulls out of the Masters, and he really hasn't been the same since. So all summer, he has a solid hold on the #1 ranking, but he hasn't been the same guy. And as we talk about how this golf course sets up well for a big hitter, for a bomber, I mean, that's also Dustin Johnson. He just hasn't had the same form that he had earlier in the year. This would be a great place for him to possibly, get right and maybe win his second career major, but we just haven't seen a lot from him lately this summer.
Do you have one sleeper pick who could surprise the field?
I think there's quite a few sleepers. There are a lot of guys. I do think you start with a guy who hits the ball far. I mean, Jordan Spieth, you put him on the list of contenders because he's shown he can win anywhere. But I like guys like Charlie Hoffman, who keeps popping up in majors earlier in the week. Maybe this is the week where he finally puts it together and hangs on through the weekend. Another guy, one of the biggest hitters on tour has a couple top 10s in PGA Championships, is Tony Finau. That's going deeper down the list, but I think he could be a guy that surprises this week. And I'll give you one more. It's Belgium's Thomas Pieters, one of the biggest hitters in the game, played well last week. He's going to win a major someday. I'd watch for him this weekend as well. So 3 for the price of 1 there on sleeper picks.
Thank you so much. We're exhausted after all of those sleeper picks. Jeff Ritter joining us from Quail Hollow Club in Carmel, North Carolina. Jeff, appreciate your time. Thank you.
All right, no problem.
All right, and Robin, that's going to do it for you and I today. You're going to go watch the PGA Championship?
Maybe I could go to sleep off all those sleepers, take a little bit of a nap, relax, turn on the TV. And
fun fact about Robin Lundberg, never played golf.
I've swung a golf club. I've hit like at a driving range. I've never played a full course of golf.
Yes,
maybe we should film that so I can be utterly embarrassed.
That's one step above putt-putt. We're going to get you there someday, Robin. Thanks so much, of course, for watching. We'll be back tomorrow to close out the week at 10:30 a.m. Eastern. Please join us then. But until you can find us right back here in the studio, you can always be on SI.com for all the latest news and headlines. You can follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. We'll be posting clips from the show there immediately after this. Bye, guys. See you tomorrow.
When I do play golf, I'm doing the Shooter McGavin for sure.